Running on air by 11ty7, Chapter 16, Part 2. He's not going to be head Aura. They tell him they're considering another candidate and give him disapproving look, parroting Ron's words. We need someone more reliable, they say. Williamson takes him aside and reassures him that if the position is vacant in a few years and Harry has sorted himself out, he should still apply for it. 2 weeks after his return, he sits in his old investigative division office. Holdsworth, for all her sharp looks and thinly pressed lips, has kept it for him. "Missing the old place?" she asked, standing in the doorway. Harry sits in a chair behind the desk, regardless of the faint patina of dust over it. "Yes," he says truthfully. Then he looks away. "I suppose there is not much chance of returning. Not after I disappeared for 3 weeks. Holdsworth looks at him, tilting her head as she does whenever she finds something particularly interesting. "Disappearing people are our specialty," she says, then turns and leaves. Harry stares at the empty doorway for a long time, then slowly opens his desk drawer. All the old files are still here, including... Picks up the pale blue folder and lets it fall open. Case number L10332-5. Date filed 10th of September 2003. Case classification closed. Located alive. Name Malfoy Draco. Other names none. He turns the page. There's the photograph Narcissa gave him, and Harry's breath catches for a moment. 2 long weeks since he has last seen Draco's face. He stares up at him, his eyes the color of a sky just before a storm, his mouth small and serious. Harry reaches out and traces his fingertips across the photograph, a motion he'd never dare to make to Draco in person. But the Draco in the picture just gazes at him, not moving, while Harry's finger trail along his face. "I miss you," Harry thinks, but he hasn't gotten the courage yet to say it out loud. He closes the file slowly, Draco disappearing beneath the pages. July melts into August. Harry stands at the step of the ministry building, chin tilted upwards, gaze forward as ever. His feet ache. The high noon sun beats down upon him, creating a bead of sweat upon his brow. To his left, Ron is equally silent and still. Some distance away, the protesters roil and rage. The economy isn't going so well, and within the ministry there have been talks of raising the tax-free threshold. A wizard in front of Harry angrily waves a sign about. "Sir, please move away from the ministry entrance," Harry says. "Ministry employees have the right to access the building without harassment." "Harassment? Protesting is harassment now, is it?" The man seethes. "Don't you bloody stand there and tell me that my suffering is an inconvenience. You've got a nice, cushy ministry job." "Sir, please move away from the ministry entrance," Harry repeats blandly. "Unemployed for 6 months. Well, the ministry doesn't care, does it? Just sends out brainless trolls like you to stand here and parrot from the rulebook." Harry lets the wizard hurtle on through his vitriol-fueled speech. His polyjuice potion will be wearing off soon, he thinks. He hates having to take it, but what other choice does he have? As the supervisor rightfully pointed out, he'd become a security risk if he appeared as himself. Harry turns his gaze briefly to the cloudless blue sky and thinks the canola meadows will be harvested soon. The sunshine-yellow flowers lopped off, the plants left to wither in the last of the summer heat. Light footsteps in the field, arms wrapping briefly around him. "Catch me." On the last day of summer, when the sapphire-colored sky has given way to pale blue and the blazing sunlight has gentled, Holdsworth tells Harry there is a vacancy in the investigative division. I haven't got any qualifications, he says uncertainly. Applications close on the 18th of September, Holdsworth says crisply. I'll think about it. He does, often. The next day, the 1st of September, he asks Ron if he likes working as an aura. They're sitting at the bar at the Mad Alchemist, and Ron's nursing his 4th butterbeer and looking thoughtful as Harry asks the question. Harry, expecting an automatic and enthusiastic "yes, I love my job," is surprised when Ron answers. I guess. Ron takes a long sip of his butterbeer. Remember the early days, though? Merlin, that was crazy. Total madness, Harry agrees. We used our competition to see who ended up the most sleep-deprived, remember? Atkinson still holds the record, I think. 4 days straight on the job. We used to sleep in our offices and survive off sandwiches from the nearest cafe, Ron says, grinning. It was great, though, wasn't it? Fantastic. Harry returns Ron's grin, but after a long moment his smile slightly fades. We were going places back then. Turned the whole department on its head. Changed all the training policies. Got rid of all the corruption. Created specialty areas. Yeah, and while we weren't making radical changes, we were chasing the last of the Death Eaters. Ron shakes his head. Those fields assignments. You don't get 'em like that anymore. They spend staking out places, tracking down dark arts masterminds. Of course, it's great. It's not like that anymore. Ron adds quickly, a half-hearted disclaimer. Is it? Well, yeah, I mean, no Death Eaters, no rabid followers. Works right up a lot since the war, Ron says, still smiling. But his voice is a little uncertain. Mostly stupid prats trading on the black market, eh? And unlicensed potioneers, all that sort of thing. Harry looks down at his empty glass, then pushes it aside and catches the bartender's eyes. Glenmorangie, please. Need. 25 year if you have it, Harry adds, and the bartender disappears for a moment, reappears to shake his head. 10-year, all right? Harry nods and pays. Ron pulls a face. For that price, it better be laced with Felix Felicis. Harry says nothing, taking a leisurely sip of his drink. Ron frowns. Do you? He asks suddenly. Harry looks up. Do I what? Do you enjoy being an aura? Harry stares down at his drink, tipping the glass slowly and watching the whiskey eddy around. The words are wrenched reluctantly from his lips. Used to. When he dares to look up at Ron doesn't look shocked or even surprised. He just nods and takes another swig of his butterbeer. Yeah, he says. It's a bit like that. Merlin, he had such high hopes. When he was 17, he thought he'd feel that way forever, that he'd always want to be an aura, because being an aura was just like dodging spells and chasing people and spending cozy nights arguing over strategies with his 2 best friends. And he'd come home exhausted but happy at the end of each day, stepping through the door of a little cottage somewhere in the countryside. Something ramshackle like the Burrow, or ancient like Hogwarts. And Ginny would be there, smiling, forever young. In his dreams, he was 17 forever. Funny that. He forgot to age himself, or Ginny. He forgot about Ginny's own ambitions and choices, and he forgot about the practicalities of a London apartment, and he'd forgotten how auras weren't needed much when there wasn't a war. He'd forgotten all the little details, the cold whispers of reality. But if his future wasn't what he dreamed it to be, no doubt countless others felt the same. Seamus Finnegan had clearly imagined a future that, for example, did not include both parents dying during the war. Justin Finch Fetchley, too, spending his final year of education on the run, hiding from snatchers. His mother tortured to reveal the location of the rest of the family. Or even Millicent Bulstrode, whom Harry heard suffered terrible injuries during the Battle of Hogwarts and ended up in a permanently catatonic state, her life reduced to palliative care. None of these students, when they were 11 years old and first stepped into the Great Hall, alive with nervous excitement and the sheer thrill of it all, would have imagined these futures for themselves. He remembers that moment, lining up outside the Great Hall, everyone looking at each other with a shared sense of awe. They could be sorted into any house, achieve anything, grow up to be anyone. Their lives awaited them, an unwrapped present. Harry remembers how young Draco had looked then, his face still softened with childhood, robes still slightly too big for him, sleeves trailing. Regardless of how arrogant and pompous Harry considered him at the time, Draco still would have stood outside the doors of the Great Hall and dreamed of the future contained within. Maybe he dreamed of childish pranks, of popularity and admiring friends. Maybe he dreamed of becoming a Quidditch all-star, showing off carefully practiced moves on the latest broom model. Maybe he dreamed of an academic achievement, impressing all his classmates and making his father proud. It doesn't matter. All those dreams became little more than dust and debris, fragments crashed beneath the weight of a wall. The weight of black ink on pale skin. Sometimes it's impossible, Harry tells himself. Some dreams are just unachievable. Do you think we could have ever been friends at Hogwarts? He unconsciously traces a fingertip along his bottom lip. The 9th of September. 4 years to the day when Draco disappeared. It's a Saturday. Summer is still hanging in the air like a familiar friend, reluctant to leave. Harry stands on the balcony and looks up at the azuline sky. Some dreams are impossible. He could pretend that if he turned around it will be December, all dark inside the apartment, only the glow of tiny lights illuminating the room. Draco will be standing by the tree. "You're here," Harry will say, and Draco will give him one of those looks. The one where he tilts his head slightly and his lips curl ever so faintly, a laugh hidden there. And Harry will step forward and kiss that hidden laugh, press his lips to the corner of Draco's mouth, right where that little smirk begins. So, don't look back. Harry looks back. Across the empty stretch of sunlit floorboards, the endless expanse of white walls seems to mock him. That sad little photograph right there in the center. Hermione and Ron's faces are nothing but pale blurs. Harry steps inside, giving the cloudless blue sky another look before snapping the sliding door shut. Treads one hand along the counter, feeling all the empty places where people should be. Silence where there should be voices, sometimes soft and serious, sometimes light and teasing. Catch me. Harry reaches out, and for a moment he can almost feel the canola flowers feathering his fingers. The stars on his skin, a hand slipping through his. He blinks, then slowly drops his hand. Around him, dust mote dances in the sunlight. They assign new fieldwork on Monday. The dark green folder drops onto Harry's desk with a thud. Ron's head pops over the cubicle divider. No assignment? I gathered as much. Harry picks up the folder and flips it open. A group of international scam artists are using love potions and romance charms to swindle elderly wizards and witches out of their savings. Their locations, dates, photographs of suspects, a page of bank statements. Harry frowns and turns the page, skimming over the rows of dates and locations. Not much here, Harry says. Yeah, well, that's why the law enforcement foot soldiers gave it to us, Ron shrugs. Pearson's working on a map at the moment. Hopefully we'll see some patterns. Spoken to any victims? Well, they reckon we don't need to. Set up surveillance and some tracing charms should be able to take the scammers down within a week. Harry sighs loudly. He hadn't meant it, but Ron raises his eyebrow and gives Harry a shrewd look. Hermione wants to know if you're coming over for dinner tonight. All right. Ron gives Harry one last look, then disappears from sight, sitting back down at his desk. Harry visits his investigative division office before he leaves for the day. No, he thinks for a moment before wincing and shaking his head. No, not his office anymore. He was supposed to clear it out, but he'd forgotten. Or maybe he just avoided thinking about it. The door unlocks at a tap of his wand, like it always does. Security flaw, he thinks automatically. They should have removed his wand signature from an office as soon as he left. But that's thinking like an aura, constant vigilance. Harry has to smile wryly. Nobody wants to break into the missing persons office. Nothing exciting there. No international crime organizations or terrorist information. Just family photographs of smiling faces. Long-lost people. Ordinary people, missed and loved only by their friends and family. Considered unimportant to everyone else. The bewitched windows offer a view of a sunset over London, lighting the room in the last faint shadows of a cloudy dusk. Harry looks around the room for a moment, spotting the card sent in by Fenwick's son. Thank you for finding my father, the awkward teenage handwriting says. It means a lot. Of course, when Fenwick went missing, his son had only been 9 or 10. Now he's 17. It never ceases to amaze Harry that people thank him. He spends months interviewing them, asking them to relive painful or difficult memories, sitting there listening to them recall the little habits and hobbies of their loved ones. And then he'll find a skeleton in a field or a suicide night and have to tell them. And Merlin help him, they thank him. With tears in their eyes, they thank him as he tells them their loved one is dead. Harry slowly runs a hand over his desk. He could be solving a case right now, working on something important. His oral work is important, he reminds himself irritably. Elderly people losing their life savings to greedy criminal. Of course that's important. Far more important than, for example, bringing someone home. He leaves the office quickly, shutting the door a bit too loudly behind him.